and he's going to house it.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the latest Quick Six. Brian, we have reached week 18 of the NFL season. The college football playoff semis are in the books. All of the bowl games are done outside of the national championship. Obviously, it was an incredibly rough weekend for both of our teams. I am still tilting about Ohio State's malfunction in the fourth quarter. Obviously, your team started off not so good, made it a little more interesting, kind of had a chance at the end. Probably should have had at least 6 more points. You know, there's a few different things in there. But you know, we got to keep moving forward. How are you and what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, I recovered rather quickly from that game. It was one of those games as a fan, especially somebody who's watched a ton of sports throughout their life. There was at least 2 times throughout the game where I was like, all right, this game's over. Like,
Yeah,
there was no life. Every time Michigan scored, TCU went back with another big play to like just regain that previous lead. And then watching Ohio State and Georgia, I was even more upset watching that game through the first 3 quarters and 14 minutes and 50 seconds, knowing Michigan is the one that effed up the chance to have the game in the national championship, only to watch Noah Ruggles, who is one of, if not the best kicker in college football, completely Ray Finkel that kick for Georgia to find themselves in their second consecutive national championship game.
He tried too hard. And I love college football, so I listened to all the content and they talk about the game and they talk about the little things, and every time it's just like, oh my god, we had the game. It was done. It was over. And you know, obviously as a spoiled Ohio State fan, like, it's one of those things that once the playoffs come around, that's when the season really starts for me. And you know, whatever, but I feel like Charlie Brown every year, and Lucy just keeps moving that football on me, and we keep missing and keep not getting there. That game and the Clemson game with Justin Fields were like 2 of the most disappointing games from a college. I mean, I was honestly, outside of the Titans Super Bowl with Kevin Dyson's this close to the end zone, that, I mean, this might have even beat it because we had the lead. It was over 15 points going to the fourth quarter. We got the 4th and 1 on the fake punt, and Kirby had called timeout. Apparently he probably got it, but my god, there's so many things that had to go right for them to not get it. And they still had the ball in the fourth quarter, driving, had a chance, pulled a Vrabel and just put it in park once they got on the other side of the 50 for some random ass reason. I don't know. But I'll tell you one thing. I had some thoughts about CJ Stroud going before that game. That dude impressed the hell out of me.
He looked incredible. I will go out on the limb. That is his best game he's played as a Buckeye.
Yeah, and he's obviously, there's been times where it's been frustrating, especially against that team up north, but locked up the number 1 overall pick almost assuredly, depending on who else, you know, whoever gets it. But I can almost guarantee you he'll be that guy. He was incredible. He made some really impressive throws. He showed off his legs, which of course, very Ohio State and Urban Meyer, Ryan Day, to finally get to a point where the quarterback shows you a dimension that they could actually do all season, but like the coach held them back for some reason. Anyways, long story short, our teams aren't playing, but TCU Georgia should be fun. College football season's basically done.
It's very sad.
And we only have one. I know but that means we're a month closer to NASCAR.
Oh, dude, I'm stoked for that. Don't get me started.
Month away. Our NASCAR content will be coming fast and hard in the near future. But we're here to talk football. Obviously, what happened on Monday night was terrible, and we're going to kind of see what happens with the Bills, with the Bengals. But we're here to make picks, and we're here to see if we can't find a way to cash some of these bets. But before that, Brian, let's talk about what last week was and see. Not such a great week, but it was okay. Michigan -7.5. We did get 2 semifinal games that were actually competitive. Not usually these games are complete blowouts, and both of them came down to final drive. So that was fun. Cardinals Falcons under. I was a little worried about that, but I really appreciate the Falcons just parking the bus, settling everything down, and kicking the field goal to win and getting me just under. And then apparently the Niners had too much fun on New Year's, and Vegas really got to them because their defense, the only quarterbacks to throw multiple, I think 3 or more touchdowns against the Niners, Patrick Mahomes, Jarrett Stidham. So, I mean, obviously put Jarrett Stidham in the Hall of Fame now, but so that was a frustrating loss across the board. You had a nice week. Obviously, the overhit. I think what the Ohio State and Georgia almost combined for like 100 points.
Yeah.
So that was nice. The Texans just got.
I don't know what happened in that game, because exactly the way I thought they were going to kind of operate Jacksonville in terms of pulling their starters, that might have been more so because of the score, but I thought for sure Houston would put up a way better showing than what they did there, especially with how good they had played in their past couple of games at home.
Yep. They want to make sure they get that number 1 pick, and they sure made a way to do that. And then the Steelers, not only did they cover, but they won outright. So that was a nice call by you. So on the season, I am 31-23, still hitting 57.5%, up 14.5 units. Going to get a little risky this week, but I'm excited. I'm going to see if I can't pile up that number. And you're working your way back to 500, still down a little bit, but we got time, and then we have the playoffs too. So we'll be here each and every week of the playoffs to give you our thoughts on all the games. It should be a incredible playoffs. There's a lot of teams going into it that are going to be fun, and hopefully a few more get added. Obviously, we'll have some thoughts onto that in this week's show, where I will start with my first bet. We'll go Saturday night. The Tennessee Titans money line at Jacksonville. Taking 6.5 is probably the smarter move, but it's week 18. I feel like getting a little reckless. Josh Dobbs actually didn't look like a train wreck against a good Dallas defense. A lot of the good players played. It wasn't like they sat everybody.
I think they were caught off guard too with the game plan, because there was no word whatsoever that it was not going to be Malik Willis until extremely close to game time.
But he actually looked like a competent quarterback. Like he looked comfortable. The offense seemed a little more. And then that play, I gotta give Micah Parsons some credit. He comes running in off the sidelines for the first play of the game, goes in and makes the first play. So, but they hung around. They made it interesting. It almost seemed like they could keep that game a little more fun. And obviously, the Cowboys ended up winning, but. The Titans sat basically all of their good defensive players that were healthy. Players that were a big part of them getting the number 1 overall seed in the AFC last year. They also sat Derrick Henry, which a good week off for him is always a good thing. And if Jobs can just show a little bit to keep the defense sort of honest, I think you can throw on them. And we've seen Jacksonville, their defense isn't what it is. It's like their defense can make some plays, but a lot of teams have moved the ball on them. So I think the Titans can absolutely win this game. To me, this feels a lot like last year, where it was Raiders Chargers and everybody wanted to anoint the Chargers, and Justin Herbert's here and here we go. And the Raiders found a way to squeak it out and got in the playoffs. I think the Titans can do the same thing. Plus 240 is just a really good number, so I'm going to jump on that. But, I feel like this is a field goal game either way. I feel like Derrick Henry has a nice game. He's ran all over Jacksonville before. I don't see any reason for that to change this week. But I am going with the money line, plus 240 at Jacksonville.
For me, that's a great value play, especially we've seen these teams meet in the past. And Tennessee with Mike Vrabel as head coach is somebody I'm going to back before I go with anybody on Jacksonville, even with Doug Peterson. And I feel like the market has kind of overcorrected itself in Jacksonville's favor because they dominated a Houston team who is absolutely atrocious. So I think there's too much going in their favor, or in terms of like public betting for Jacksonville, that I like Tennessee this week also to cover the spread more so than the money line. But
yeah,
I mean, if you're going to do it, you might as well take them on the money line.
Yeah. Or take, split up your normal bet, go 70% on plus 6.5 and 30% on the money line just to have a little taste and see what happens. Your first NFL bet is also on Saturday. That is the Kansas City Chiefs at Las Vegas Raiders over 52.5.
Yeah, this game, I went back and forth between going two separate sides. It was interesting because I was leaning taking the Raiders getting the points here, considering 9 of their 10 losses have all been by 7 or fewer points this year for the Raiders. So, I mean, they're definitely keeping games close. With that
and
said,
the Chiefs
however,
have been atrocious against the spread. I think they're like 5-13, 5-12.
Well, they do just
something.
enough.
Mm-hmm.
Just like you were talking about with your Buckeyes as a Buckeyes fan, like you don't get excited until it's the game and then you're in Big Ten championship at playoff time. It's like Kansas City. They've been through this so many years now with Andy Reid. They don't care about these games or how they win. They just need to win and get in, and then they get ready to roll.
Yep.
Which is why I'm going to take the over in this game, because Kansas City has gone over this number in 6 of 8 road games this year. 4 of 7 home games for the Raiders have gone over this number. These teams combined for 59 points back in October, and they've gone over this mark in 5 consecutive meetings dating back to the beginning of 2020. There's nothing that is showing me that Kansas City's defense is going to stop a passing offense that looked actually really good with the Raiders against a way better defense than the 49ers last week. And then vice versa, the Raiders are not going to stop Kansas City's machine with Patrick Mahomes hitting on all cylinders right now and everybody kind of coming back. Mecole Hardman was activated. So this is a smash play for me. Even if it goes to I would take this probably at 54. I would take the over still. And I think even that might be a little bit low.
Yeah. Yeah. And Stidham, they did not miss a beat. Obviously, they actually have a full complement of weapons. This is Jacobs, Waller, Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow. They're all on the field.
It's the first time they've been this healthy.
Some things they didn't do for 85% of the season. So, that is really good to see. Stidham obviously looked good. He was making some really, really impressive throws. I don't think he'll be quite as good this week. But even if he's 80% of what he was, that should be plenty. Maybe Josh Jacobs has a nicer game, and there's a lot of ways this goes right. And there's also a Raiders get up a little bit, and then the Chiefs onslaught, and all of a sudden it's 42-14, and we're hitting the over. So, I like that. I said I was going to get a little reckless. I said I was going to get off the rails this week. The Detroit Lions are going to make the playoffs. Plus 850. Here's what needs to happen. This is a Lions team that has looked awesome. There was a lot of hype coming into the season, and we're like, Dan Campbell's a psychopath, and how good can Jared Goff really be? But this offense is really fun. Goff has been super solid. Obviously, Jamal Williams seems like he scores at least a touchdown every week. I think he's got 15 on the season, tied Barry Sanders' record. They have DeAndre Swift going at full board. He's actually looking.
He looks incredible,
awesome.
By the way, too.
Amon-Ra St. Brown. They have lots of weapons. They've been able to plug in rando tight end for what they had Hawkinson doing. And their defense is getting better. Aiden Hutchinson's looking like
I saw some statistic today that their pass rush in the first 8 games, they had something like 7 or 8 sacks. In the next 8 games, they have something like 28 or 29. They're one of the league leaders in sacks over that stretch.
Yeah. So I like that. And the Packers, they've been winning games and they're getting the hype, and obviously they have Aaron Rodgers, but I don't buy this team one bit. And the only reason they played the Vikings last week, who are also not very good and just continue to win games. The average margin for a team that has won as many games as or the average point differential rather, for a team that has won as many games as the Vikings is usually like 100 and something. And I think the Vikings differential is like 17. So like they're just barely squeaking, and good to them. Like they're the team that's in your fantasy league that wins every game, playing the crappy teams.
Yep,
And
exactly.
sneak in, and then they play a team and then they get dismantled. I think the Lions beat them. So you could just take the Lions money line, have a nice number, call it a day. The other part that has to happen, the reason I went to make the playoffs and not just like a money line, because the Seahawks ideally lose. The Rams beat the Seahawks and the Lions beat the Packers. They are in, no questions about it. But there is some weird finagly scenarios where there's like ties and stuff, and that all impacts it. So I gave myself a little more of a window. You can get plus 870 on DraftKings instead of the 840. I found a 9-1, which I took. So shop it, find a good value. But I think the Rams could absolutely beat Seattle.
They
Seattle,
look pretty
like,
good.
Baker's figuring stuff out. Cam Akers looks like the guy we drafted in top 3 rounds. I mean, and Seattle's been like fine, and they've done their stuff, but we talked about it a couple weeks ago. It seemed like the wheels were falling off, and obviously they got a huge win last week, so good on them. But I think the Rams could absolutely beat Seattle. So if the Rams beat Seattle and the Lions beat Green Bay, which I think both are very likely, you're getting 9-1, 8.5-1
On
for
a
that
money
to
line bet,
happen.
essentially.
Yeah. So it seems like an amazing value. And it's cool too, because if the Lions win, they beat Green Bay, and you want to hedge a little bit, you take Seattle on the money line, or you take them, minus whatever. And you could kind of hedge a little bit, but I think it's a fun bet. I think lay a little bit, win a lot if it goes well, and see what you can do.
I think it'd be an interesting little parlay too if you go Rams and Lions money line parlay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's plus 870. So that's really fun. And like I said, if you shop it, you might find a little bit better of a number. I found a 9-1 on the Lions to make the playoffs. So that is in my portfolio. Brian, let's go to your next bet. We'll head over to Sunday, where the Baltimore Ravens plus 7 at the Cincinnati Bengals. All signs point to this game actually being played, right?
Yeah, as far as right now, there's no indication that Cincinnati's going to have a game pushed back, or I mean, for that matter, the Buffalo Patriots game. There's nothing saying that they're not going to play that game. But
yeah,
staying with my pick here with the Ravens plus 7. This is like a multifaceted reasoning pick by me. I mean, Baltimore has lost 6 games this year, but only one of those has come by more than I think 4 points, and it was a 10-point defeat to Cleveland. So they're playing extremely close games. I did this last week with Pittsburgh at Baltimore. Anytime AFC North opponents face each other this late in the season, you got to expect crappy weather. You got to expect kind of hard-nosed type football. And these teams know each other so well, with John Harbaugh there, and Zach Taylor has kind of made a name for himself in the AFC North. So I think these teams will come in here, with good game plans against each other. You have to factor in the emotional toll that Cincinnati has gone through since Monday Night Football, so you don't know how ready they're going to be. And then you also have to take into account, if Kansas City wins on Saturday, they clinch the number 1 seed. Okay? So then Cincinnati and Buffalo, if they both decide as a collective group, we're just going to cancel, like they tell the NFL, we're just going to cancel our games, they are then set in their seeds. Yeah. So then Buffalo would be in the 2 seed, and Cincinnati would clinch the AFC North without playing another game and losing to Baltimore. So then everything would work in Baltimore's favor to cover this line. And even if Kansas City does lose, Cincinnati is still going to be playing behind the 8 ball, because Buffalo has the advantage on them in the tiebreaker for a better seed. So I just think there's too much working against Cincinnati to like put up their A+ effort here. While Baltimore, yes, they don't have much to play for, but this is the John Harbaugh coach team who I think they have not played their best. And I think he knows he needs to get these guys going before the playoffs begin. And I think they come in here and they play some of their best football we've seen in quite some time.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And I think, I don't see a scenario in which the Bills and Bengals play. I think between the emotional stuff and just the logistics of the playoffs coming up and all the stadiums and all that stuff, it just doesn't seem reasonable. If it was week 6 or week 8, like I totally see a path to them playing, playing an extra Thursday or something. But
yeah, it is interesting
at this point, it's
the amount of impact that missed game is going to have, though, because Baltimore now no longer has a chance to win the AFC North if they don't play that game. And then Cincinnati and Buffalo, if Kansas City does lose, do they then lobby the NFL? We need to make this up somehow because like Buffalo could still get the number 1 seed.
Yeah.
At that point,
Yeah,
a bye in the playoffs is going to be huge.
Well, Roger will give them 5 minutes and they can just figure it out and go back on the field. It's not a big deal.
Right.
Just play Tuesday, Wednesday. It's fine.
Yeah, I'll give him a day off in between.
What a clown. Yeah, but I like this. It's division. This could easily be backups. This could easily be, and you're right. I think Baltimore needs to get their stuff together if they want to actually make some noise in the playoffs. And,
yeah, because some teams can afford to kind of, pack it in and just kind of roll into the playoffs off of a bad performance. Baltimore is not one of those teams because even though they've kind of split their games the past few weeks, they have not looked good.
Yep. My third and final pick, the LA Rams plus 6.5 at Seattle. Obviously would love to get a full 7, but doesn't seem likely at this point. A lot of 6s floating around in market. I like the Rams. I think they're playing their best ball. I think Baker has been really impressive since going there. Like I said, Cam Akers looked really good. The defense has been fine. And I don't trust Seattle to cover this number. Like, I think they're fine. And I think, honestly, I don't know, even with the win against the Jets last week, I don't think the win was as impressive as the final score may indicate. And maybe that happens again, and maybe the Seahawks just, win by a touchdown.
But I mean, it's still the Jets. Like, it's a banged up Jets team going into Seattle, which is never easy.
Yeah. Yep. So I think the Rams can keep this interesting. I think, it's a field goal, like 3 or 4 point game either way. I'm getting 6.5 here. I think this is a good number, so I am going to jump on it. Your third and final pick, the Minnesota Vikings, who were an absolute shit show last week. -7 at the Chicago Bears. Talk to me about this one.
Well, Minnesota can still get the number 2 seed in the NFC, and Chicago is starting Nathan Peterman.
Can they still get the 1 seed?
I don't think they can.
I think I know the Niners can get it. I know if the Eagles and Niners lose and Dallas wins, they can get it.
Yeah, so Minnesota would need the Giants, the Cardinals, and the Washington Commanders to win in order to get the number 1 seed, which that is not happening. I'm sorry.
But I love to see the money line parlay. I'm going to look it up while you talk.
Gosh. But going back to this spot here, I think the most important reason why I'm laying the 7 with Minnesota on the road here is because they still want to win, because a 2 is better than a 3 when it comes to playoff seeding. And then always Nathan Peterman will be making the start for the Chicago Bears. So they've clearly packed it in for the season, sitting Justin Fields with a supposed strained hip, when in reality, they're just trying to get the best draft pick possible. So I think Chicago is going to play a bunch of scrubs. They're going to get whooped, and Minnesota is going to get out of there with a fairly easy victory.
Yeah, I mean, I think Fields definitely has a myriad of injuries that we're going to find out about. I think he's been playing through a lot of stuff. But yeah, and obviously they have a reason to lock up. It's, when you're in your dynasty league and you're in the final week of the season, and if you lose, you can get a 3rd pick instead of the 4th pick, you're going to do it. So, exactly. I just looked it up, Brian. We get 228 to 1 on the Cardinals, the Commanders, and the Giants all on the money line. So, if you are a Vikings fan and you want to see a potential number 1 seed,
just put a 5 spot on it.
Put $1 on it. You'll win $228 if it all happens.
Oh man.
I mean, the Giants plus 650. Obviously, Tyrod's playing. That's a 14-point spread. Cardinals, Boom Boom Blau is playing. Mr. Blau, that's his name.
Well, what's interesting is the Giants have made no official announcement over who is and who isn't playing. And honestly, because these guys are young, I have an eerie suspicion you're going to see Daniel Jones start, probably play like a half, and then Saquon maybe a series. Like they cannot risk any injury.
I think Saquon's toast, but I think it'll be a lot like what we expected from Jacksonville. Yeah, a quarter to a half, see how the game goes, and if it's a blow. I am happy to see Jalen Hurts. I hope Jalen Hurts plays, and I hope he wins by like 4 touchdowns and gets that MVP trophy, because that bet is really nice if it can come to fruition. But it's very fitting for me. Whenever I bet futures, the wheels tend to fall off right at the end. So this is just, I probably should have put it up on Prop Swap and cashed out when I had the chance.
But we talked about this with Philadelphia losing 2 consecutive games and looking the way that they have. If Jalen Hurts comes in here, does what you just said, puts on a show, there's a legit opportunity for him to steal some votes from Patrick Mahomes, who has been kind of taking the limelight while he's been out. So
yeah, and a lot of times the betting market and the way the votes happen throughout the season don't always sync up. They're kind of adjusting based on how the money's coming in, but so we'll see. Let's recap our card. Let's give our people the bets, the units, and then we'll get out of here. So the Tennessee Titans money line at Jacksonville plus 240. Gonna put 2 units on that. Detroit Lions to make the playoffs plus 850. I'll put 1 unit on that. And then the Rams plus 6.5 at Seattle. I'll put 5 units on that. Feels pretty good. Plus, then if the other 2 go off the rail, I can still have a profitable week. So that is where my head is at for my 3 picks. Brian, give the people your picks and your units.
All right, we're going to start with the Chiefs at the Raiders to go over 52.5 at DK at minus 105, which is pretty good juice for a number like this. I'm going to go 5 unit play on this. I feel extremely confident that these 2 teams will light up the scoreboard. Next on the docket is going to be the Ravens plus 7 at the Bengals over at Caesars at minus 110. I'm going to go pretty safe here in just a 2 unit play, just because there's a lot of stuff factoring into this game and any sort of announcement later in the week. Who the hell knows what's going to happen? And then the last play for the week is going to be the Minnesota Vikings minus 7 at the Chicago Bears at minus 110 over at PointsBet. And I'm going to go 3 units on that. And if I could have, I would have won another 5 unit play if I didn't feel as strong as I did on the Chiefs and the Raiders over.
Yeah. Yep. So that lets you know where Brian's head is at. That is Brian Twining. I am Kyle Robert. If you're enjoying what we're doing, make sure you smash the thumbs up. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Let us know down in the comments your favorite bet for NFL Week 18. Could be a side, could be a total, could be a player prop. All of the above. Enjoy the football slate. Enjoy our last weekend of full screen, side-by-side, multi-screen, all regular games before the playoffs start. So
enjoy the last full Sunday of NFL Sunday Ticket on DirecTV. I will miss you, my friend.
All the seniors will have to take their dentures out and get ready for bed right after the game ends.
Yeah,
that is Brian Twining. I am Kyle Robert. We'll talk to you guys.